Hey there, I'm Jenna, 32, and if you told me a year ago that I'd be sitting in my sister's cramped guest room in Phoenix, staring at a stack of divorce papers with my husband's name on them, I'd have called you crazy. I had it all: Ethan, my rock of a husband, a cozy condo with a killer view of the Rockies, a career I loved. Life was good, stable, the kind of setup you see in those cheesy rom-coms. But then Tyler, my ex from way back, waltzed back into my world, and I let him turn it all upside down without even realizing it. Ethan was my safe place, my future. Tyler was my past, a wild, messy chapter I thought I'd closed. Turns out, I didn't see the storm coming until it had already wrecked everything. Let's rewind to where it all started. I met Ethan 4 years ago at a tech conference in Denver. I was 28, freelancing as a graphic designer, still scraping by in a shared apartment with two roommates because city rent was brutal. Ethan was 30, a project manager for some software firm, tall, sandy blonde hair, hazel eyes, always in these crisp polos that screamed dependable. He wasn't the type to flash a Rolex or dominate a room with loud stories. He was just there, steady, with this quiet smile that made you feel seen. We hit it off over terrible conference coffee, complaining about the burnt taste, and by the end of the weekend, he'd asked me out. Our first date was at this hole-in-the-wall Italian joint, dim lights, checkered tablecloths, the best spaghetti I'd ever had. When the bill came, I did the polite reach form, wallet thing, but he waved me off, blushing a little, and said, "I've got it, wouldn't feel right otherwise." It was sweet, old school, totally unlike the guys I'd dated before. And those guys, let's talk about Tyler. He was my college boyfriend back when I was 22 and thought love meant chaos and adrenaline. Tyler was a musician, tattooed arms, shaggy black hair, this electric energy that pulled you in like a magnet. We met at a dive bar where his band was playing, and I was hooked. Those late-night gigs, the way he'd strum his guitar like the world depended on it. We dated for 2 years, but it was a mess. He'd blow his gig money on booze or new gear instead of rent, flirt with groupies right in front of me, ditch plans last minute for some big opportunity. The final straw was when I caught him making out with a bartender backstage after a show, lipstick on his neck, grinning like it was nothing. I dumped him, sobbing in my dorm room, swearing I'd never let him near me again. But Tyler didn't vanish. He'd text every few months, random stuff like, "Saw a sunset that reminded me of you," or "Miss your vibe, Jen." I'd reply because it felt safe, nostalgic. We grab coffee sometimes, laugh about old times, and I told myself we'd cracked the code to being friends. By the time Ethan came along, Tyler was still lurking in the background, but I brushed it off as no big deal. Ethan and I moved fast. 6 months in, I ditched my roommates and moved into his condo, this sleek place with hardwood floors and a balcony overlooking the mountains. A year later, he proposed on a snowy hike, kneeling in the powder with this simple gold ring that caught the light just right. I said yes, tears freezing on my cheeks, and we got married 9 months later at this gorgeous vineyard outside Boulder. Small, intimate, with twinkle lights and a string quartet. My friends adored him. My bestie, Sarah, called him the unicorn every girl dreams of, and my dad, once threatened to kick Tyler out of our house, said, "Jenna, you finally picked a winner." I felt it too, that warm, settled feeling of getting it right. No more drama, no more heartbreak. Just Ethan and me building something real. But Tyler never fully faded. He'd moved to LA after we broke up, chasing his rock star dreams, and for a while he was just a blip: annual birthday texts, the odd Instagram comment on my art posts. Ethan knew about him. I'd mentioned Tyler was my ex early on, but I played it down. "Oh, we're just friends now, ancient history," I'd say when his name popped up. Ethan didn't push, but I'd catch these little flickers. His eyes narrowing when my phone lit up at midnight with Tyler's name, his voice tightening when he'd ask, "Who's texting this late?" "Just Tyler being Tyler," I'd laugh, rolling my eyes like it was absurd to care. "He texts you a lot for an ex," Ethan said once, halfway through our first year married, and I shot back, "You're not seriously jealous, are you? It's nothing." He'd nod, let it go, but there was this shadow in his expression I didn't clock at the time. I should have paid attention, but I was too busy convincing myself I had it all under control. 2 years into our marriage, life was golden. Ethan got a promotion to senior project manager, more money, more responsibility, and I landed a huge freelance contract designing for a national outdoor gear brand. We spend weekends hiking or binging true crime shows, talking about maybe buying a house, starting a family. It was the kind of life I'd always wanted, stable, predictable, safe. Then, out of nowhere, Tyler messaged me. "Hey Jen, I'm back in Denver, new band, new gigs. Coffee soon." My thumb hovered over the screen. I hadn't seen him in years, and there was this tug, curiosity maybe, or that old thrill I couldn't quite shake. I told Ethan that night, casual as anything, Tyler's back in town, might grab coffee to catch up. His fork paused midair and he looked at me jaw tight. "Your ex Tyler?" he asked. "Yeah, no big deal," I said, sipping my wine. "Be careful, Jen," he said, voice low. "It's just coffee, Ethan, chill," I replied, waving it off. He didn't argue, but the air felt off the rest of the night. That coffee wasn't just coffee. We met at this trendy spot downtown, exposed brick, overpriced lattes, and Tyler strolled in like no time had passed. Same leather jacket, same messy hair, same grin that used to make my heart race. He hugged me, lingering a second too long, and we talked for 2 hours. His tour stories, the LA scene, how he'd grown up since college. I laughed harder than I'd laughed in months, caught up in the rush of it all. When I got home, Ethan was on the couch, scrolling his laptop. "How was coffee?" he asked, not looking up. "Fun, he's doing great," I said, kicking off my boots. "Good for him," Ethan muttered, and that was it. I didn't tell him how Tyler's hand brushed mine when he passed me the sugar, or how I'd blushed when he said, "You haven't changed a bit, Jen's still a knockout." It felt innocent enough, didn't it? That coffee opened a door I didn't mean to unlock. Tyler started texting more silly memes about 90s bands we used to love, links to his new songs with captions like, "Wrote this one thinking of you." I'd reply quick, flirty stuff like, "Still a charmer, huh?" Because it was fun, light, a break from the routine of married life. Ethan noticed, of course. "Your phone's been busy lately," he'd say, half smirking over breakfast. "Oh, it's just Tyler, he's chatty since he's back." I'd shrug, scrolling without meeting his eyes. I didn't mention how often we were talking daily, sometimes hourly, because why stir the pot? It wasn't like I was hiding anything serious. Just friends, right? A few weeks later, Tyler upped the ante. "Band's playing Friday at the Bluebird, come see me kill it. Bring Ethan if he's game," he texted. I ran it by Ethan that night, sprawled on the couch with takeout. "Tyler's got a gig, wanna go, could be a vibe." Ethan set his chopsticks down, staring at me like I'd suggested skydiving without a parachute. "You want me to watch your ex strut around on stage? Pass." His tone was sharp, no humor in it. "He said you're welcome too, it's not a big deal," I pushed, annoyed he couldn't just play along. "Not interested, Jen. You go if you want," he said, turning back to the TV. I huffed, "Fine, I will." He didn't stop me, but when I left Friday night, jeans, leather jacket, a little extra mascara, I felt his eyes on me, heavy and silent. The gig was electric. The Bluebird was packed, sweaty bodies, dim lights, Tyler's voice roaring through the speakers. He spotted me in the crowd, pointed and winked mid-song, and I couldn't help grinning. After we grabbed beers at the bar, him sweaty and buzzing, me riding the high of the night. "Missed you out there, Jen, you were always my best hype girl," he said, clinking my bottle. "You're still a total showboat," I teased, and he laughed, leaning closer. "Gotta keep you impressed, right?" My stomach flipped, but I told myself it was just the beer. When I got home at midnight, Ethan was awake, reading in bed. "How was the rock star?" he asked, voice flat. "Awesome, loud, fun, you should have come," I said, peeling off my jacket. "Yeah, sounds like a blast," he replied, sarcasm dripping, then flipped off the light. The next morning, he was up before me, coffee made, but none poured for me, no good morning kiss. I texted Sarah, "Ethan's sulking 'cause I went to Tyler's show. Overreaction." She shot back, "Girl, I'd be mad too if my spouse was vibing with an ex. Careful." Tyler didn't let up. He'd randomly show up at my go-to coffee shop while I worked, laptop open, headphones on, claiming, "Oh, didn't know you'd be here." We'd chat, share a table, lose track of time. Or he'd text, "Near your place, lunch." And I'd meet him at some taco truck or diner, laughing over old stories, how we'd sneak into bars underage, the time he serenaded me with a terrible acoustic cover of Wonderwall. He'd toss out little compliments. "Your art's insane now, Jen," or "Ethan's lucky, you know," and I, blush, brushing it off but secretly loving it. Ethan started clocking my absences. "Where were you today?" he'd ask when I'd stroll in late, hair windblown from walking with Tyler. "Lunch with Tyler," I'd say, breezy. "Again?" He'd press eyebrows up. "He's a friend, Ethan, stop being weird," I'd snap, and he'd back off, but the silence after got heavier each time. It wasn't all roses with Ethan either. Work stress was piling up. He'd bring home late nights, I'd be buried in design deadlines. Our talks about kids or a house slowed to a trickle. Tyler filled the gaps. One Saturday, Ethan was stuck in a meeting and Tyler called. "Gorgeous day, hike with me?" I hesitated. Ethan hated hiking with me because I'd pushed too hard, but said yes. We hit a trail an hour out of town, just us, the pines, and that old chemistry bubbling up. Tyler grabbed my hand to steady me over a creek, held it a beat too long, and said, "Feels like old times, huh?" I pulled away, laughing. Don't get any ideas, but my pulse was racing. When I got home, Ethan asked, "Good day?" I nodded. "Yeah, hiked with Tyler." His face hardened. "Didn't know you two were that close again," he said, voice tight. "It's not a thing, relax," I shot back, but he just walked to his office and shut the door. My birthday was the first real fracture. Ethan planned this romantic dinner, our favorite steakhouse, candlelight, the works, but that morning Tyler texted, "Happy 32, drinks on me tonight, bring Ethan if he's up for it." I showed Ethan, thinking it, smooth things over. "Tyler wants to buy me a drink, maybe we could all hang after dinner." Ethan's eyes went dark. "You're joking, right? I booked us a table, not a playdate with your ex." I groaned, "It's just drinks, why can't you get along?" He stared at me, voice low. "Because he's not my friend, Jenna, he's your ex who's always around and you're letting him be." I called him paranoid, stormed off to work. Dinner was tense, I barely spoke, checked my phone when Tyler sent bar pics captioned, "Wish you were here." Ethan saw, paid the bill early, and we left without dessert. In the car, he said, "Nice to know where I stand." And I snapped, "You're making this bigger than it is." He didn't reply, just drove, hands white on the wheel. After that birthday fiasco, Ethan pulled back hard. No more playful texts during the day, no curling up for movie nights. He'd work late, come home exhausted, sleep with his back to me. I felt it, the distance. But instead of fixing it, I leaned into Tyler. He'd call beer after work, and I'd meet him at some dive, soaking up his chaos to escape Ethan's silence. Tyler was like a shot of espresso, loud, unpredictable, everything Ethan wasn't. One night, after a few too many stouts, he leaned across the table, eyes glinting, and said, "You're wasted on him, Jen. He doesn't get you like I do." I laughed, brushing it off. "You're drunk, Ty," but it stuck. Ethan was safe, steady, but did he really get me? Or was I settling? Things simmered until Ethan's company holiday party in December. Black tie, swanky hotel ballroom, free-flowing champagne. I'd been nagging Ethan to meet Tyler halfway, so I pushed. "Invite him, prove you're not threatened." Ethan's jaw clenched, but he caved. "Fine, Jen, if it'll shut you up." Tyler showed up in his leather jacket, hair mussed, charming everyone, Ethan's boss, the HR girls, even the bartender. I danced with him to some top 40 hit, laughing as he spun me while Ethan nursed a whiskey at our table, watching. Sarah, who tagged along, grabbed me after. "Jen, what's your deal? Ethan looks like he's dying over there." I shrugged, tipsy. "He's fine, he's just not a dancer." Then Tyler took it too far. He snatched the karaoke mic, half-drunk, grinning, and yelled, "This one's for Jenna, the coolest chick I know." He launched into a sloppy rendition of Sweet Child O' Mine, a song we'd blasted in college, winking at me the whole time. The crowd ate it up, clapping, whooping, but Ethan's face was a mask, eyes locked on Tyler. When it ended, Tyler stumbled over, slung an arm around me, and slurred, "Still got it right, Jen?" I giggled, hugged him back, too buzzed to care. Ethan stood, walked over, and said, "We're done here." His voice was steel. "It's just fun, don't ruin it," I whined, pulling away from Tyler. Ethan didn't argue, just grabbed his coat and left. Tyler smirked, "Dude needs to loosen up." I stayed, too pissed to chase after. I rolled in at 2 a.m., heels in hand. Ethan was on the couch, lights off, staring into the dark. "Done partying with your ex?" he asked, voice like a blade. "You're the one who ditched, don't guilt trip me," I fired back, tossing my purse down. He stood, stepping into the dim glow from the streetlight. "Guilt trip you? You let him serenade you in front of my whole company, hugged him while I sat there like some chump. That's not fun, that's a slap in my face." I exploded. "You're jealous over nothing." "He's my friend." Ethan shook his head, slow, deliberate. He's not a friend, Jenna. He's your ex, and he's been clawing his way back in since day one. And you're either too naive or too into it to admit it. We fought until dawn, yelling, crying, me hurling a throw pillow that hit the wall instead of him. You're suffocating me with your insecurity, I screamed. And you're stomping on our marriage with your friendship, he shot back. He crashed in the guest room, and the next day he barely looked at me, made coffee, left for work, no words. I thought he'd cool off, he always did. Tyler texted that morning. Epic night, Ethan's loss, I replied. He's being a baby, thanks for the fun. I didn't tell Ethan that part. A week later, Ethan sat me down, face grim. I can't keep doing this, he said, voice steady as stone. Tyler's not the issue, you are. You've picked him over me every chance you got. I laughed, sharp and bitter. You're ending us over a friendship? He leaned forward, eyes piercing. It's not a friendship, it's a wedge, and I'm tired of bleeding. Ethan moved out that Saturday, packed a suitcase, said he'd stay at his brother. I was livid, posted a cryptic Instagram story. Some people can't handle a woman with a life. Sarah called me out. Jen, this isn't about that. You've been shoving Tyler in his face, anyone would crack. I blocked her, too mad to hear it. Tyler swooped in, showed up with pizza, a six-pack, and that grin. Ethan's an idiot, I've got you, Jen, he said, flopping on my couch. I leaned on him hard, movie nights, bar hops, late talks about everything but Ethan. 3 weeks in, he kissed me, slow, warm, tasting of whiskey, and I kissed back. It felt like slipping into an old jacket, familiar and reckless. Told you we're better together, he murmured. I didn't argue. But Tyler was Ethan. He'd bail on plans, gigs over dinner, rehearsals over me. I'd ran about, so controlling, and Tyler'd nod, forget him, live a little. Then I saw it, a text from Mia on his phone while he showered. Last night was fire, see you soon? I confronted him, voice shaking. Who's Mia? He shrugged, towel around his waist. Just a friend, we're not exclusive, Jen. Thought you got that. My chest caved. I'd trashed my marriage for this. A guy who never changed, just hid it better. Ethan filed for divorce a month later. I met him at a coffee shop to sign, hopping he'd softened. He hadn't. Saw you with Tyler downtown, he said, stirring his black coffee. Guess I wasn't crazy, I begged, tears welling. It was a mistake, I didn't mean for this. He cut me off, voice low. You didn't mean to. Every coffee, every gig, every time you chose him, you meant it, Jenna, you just didn't think I'd leave. He signed, slid the papers over, and walked out. I called Tyler that night, desperate for comfort. He didn't pick up, texted later. Busy with the band, catch you soon? 2 days after, he left a voicemail. Moving back to LA, big break. You're awesome, Jen, but I'm not cut out for this. He was gone. 6 months later, I'm here, divorced, crashing with my sister, picking up freelance scraps. Ethan's moved on, new job, new girlfriend, a quiet brunette I saw on his Instagram. My friends faded, Sarah, the Vineyard crew all saw Tyler for the wrecking ball he was before I did. My sister's blunt. You didn't sleep with him till the end, but you cheated emotionally way before. She's right. I didn't see it. How every innocent text, every laugh with Tyler, carved Ethan out of my life. I wanted his chaos and Ethan's safety, thought I could juggle both. I lost everything instead. Nights are the worst. I scroll old photos of Ethan and me, hiking, cooking, that vineyard wedding. I replay the moments I could have stopped, telling Tyler no, respecting Ethan's warnings. I thought my ex was a harmless echo. He was a grenade, and I handed him the pin.